You know that moment, right? You're traveling, you meet someone cool, you have a great conversation, and as you're leaving, they say, hey, if you're ever back in town, you should totally stay with me. It's such a friendly gesture, but it's also, well, it's a bit of a cultural puzzle. So today, let's dive into that exact puzzle through the eyes of one traveler who got a very American invitation. Or three of them, actually.
So this is the big question, isn't it? You've just met someone. You clicked. And they make this super generous offer to host you in their home. But do they really mean it? Or are you going to be that awkward person who actually shows up on their doorstep? This is exactly the spot a video professional from London found himself in. So, let's meet our guy. He's a freelancer from London, and he keeps running into this. He meets these really friendly Americans, and they all make the same offer. It's flattering for sure, but also pretty confusing. It all started in Austin. Okay, so first up, Austin, Texas. He's at a conference, meets this guy, and they just hit it off. You know the vibe, just a late-night chat that goes on for hours. It's a totally natural, friendly connection, and the offer to stay just feels like part of that easygoing vibe. Seems legit, right?
Then we've got Mississippi. This is that classic Southern hospitality in action. A client won't let him pay for a thing all night and then offers up his place. And you gotta love this detail. He kept bringing up the pool. This wasn't just an offer for a couch, it was an invitation to a whole lifestyle. And rounding out the trio, Los Angeles. He's doing some promo work for a musician in a band. This connection felt a little different. You know, one of those conversations that keeps getting interrupted, but you can feel there's something there. And sure enough, the offer is made. So that's 3 different people, 3 different cities, all with the same open invitation.
So, what do you do with 3 open invitations? Well, if you're our guy from London, you start thinking, I've got the time, I've got the money. Why not? He's always wanted to see America, so he starts mapping out what seems like a pretty brilliant plan.
And look, if you're used to traveling around Europe, this itinerary makes perfect sense. Fly into Austin for a couple of nights, just pop over to LA for a couple more, and hey, maybe a quick stop in New York on the way back home. Sounds like an amazing trip. But there's a giant continent-sized piece of information that he's completely missing. And there it is, the aha moment, or maybe the oh no moment. That sudden realization that the map in his head is just wrong. This isn't just hopping from one city to another. This is a journey on a completely different scale. So the real question is, just how big are we talking?
So yeah, this is where our little story about cultural etiquette takes a hard turn into a geography lesson. Because honestly, you can't really understand American hospitality until you understand the sheer, mind-boggling scale of the country itself. Let's just break this down for a second. His expectation, his frame of reference, was a trip like London to Manchester. That's about 200 miles. Totally manageable. The reality of going from Austin to LA, we're talking 1,300 miles. That's more than 6 times farther. That's not a quick train ride. That's a whole adventure on its own.
And to really put it into perspective, look at this. The distance from Los Angeles to New York City is almost 3,000 miles. You know what else is about 3,000 miles? The distance from Lisbon, on the coast of Portugal, all the way across the continent to Kiev, in Ukraine. You are literally crossing an entire continent just going from one side of the US to the other.
I think this comment from the original discussion is probably the single most useful piece of advice you could get. Just change your mental model. Stop thinking of the US as a single country, like Spain or Germany. Start thinking of it like the entire European Union. A trip from California to New York is basically an international flight, in terms of scale. Okay, so now that we're all properly humbled by the size of the United States, let's get back to the etiquette. Because that kind of scale changes the social rules, right? If someone has to travel the equivalent of crossing a continent just to visit you, there have to be some unwritten rules for being a good house guest. So the online community basically crowdsourced a fantastic guide for this. It all boils down to respect and communication. You got to give them plenty of advance notice, and a great tip is, when you do reach out, phrase it in a way that gives them an easy out if things have changed. Obviously, don't just appear on their doorstep. Bringing a small gift is always a nice touch. And this one's the biggie, don't overstay your welcome. 3 days seems to be the magic number.
This old saying came up over and over, and it perfectly captures that last point. It's funny, but it's also just incredibly practical advice. 3 days is the sweet spot. It's enough time to really connect and have a good time, but not so long that you start to get on each other's nerves. All right, we've covered the confusing invitations, the massive geography lesson, and the unwritten rules of being a good guest. So it's time to put it all together and finally answer the original question. Are these offers for real? Should you go?
Well, it seems American hospitality is a very real cultural phenomenon. People pointed out that a lot of Americans are genuinely proud of where they live, and they love showing it off. It also helps that, on average, American homes tend to be a bit bigger and often have a spare room, so it's less of a big deal to host someone. But here's the key. The offer is totally sincere, but it's not a blank check. It's not an open-ended obligation.
And that brings us to the final verdict. The consensus is yes. The offers are almost always sincere in the moment they are made. When an American says you should come stay with me, they absolutely mean it. It's a genuine expression of a real connection. But, and this is a really big but, they often don't actually expect you to book an international flight and plan a cross-country trip to do it.
So, the takeaway is this. The friendliness is real. The country is unimaginably vast. And that invitation isn't so much a formal contract as it is, well, it's a spark. It's the potential start of an adventure. The offer opens a door, but it's up to you, armed with a good map and some common courtesy, to decide if you're ready to walk through it.